Good morning, Talk Radio Tuesday morning. Those noises mean that Phil Dave is back.
Oh, good morning.
Hello there.
How are we?
I'm all right. How are you?
Yes, all right, thank you.
I've missed you.
Oh, likewise. Do you know what? I'm sorry. I was actually just sort of reeling a little bit from the fact that Mr. Ross, who was obviously sitting in this chair before I was, he has his headphones really loud.
That's decades in broadcasting for you.
Wow.
That's age for you, probably.
Anyway, my ears are just about getting back into kilter. So.
It's coming to all of us. It's coming to all of us. How are you? Are you well?
Yeah, I mustn't complain. Thank you very much. And I'm sure you've probably been asked this by loads of people, but did you have a good festive period?
I did have a good festival. I don't think we can ask that enough, you know. People get a bit het up, don't they, about the fact
but
that
it's now 7th of January, so it's all over with, isn't it? We're back to normal now.
I suppose so, yeah, I suppose. We're back to normal, and also there is a lot of tech news floating around, Phil. It is right pickings for you at the moment, isn't it?
It is very much. There's only one story really in town, though, of course, and that is the CES show, the Consumer Electronics Show for 2020. And every single year I say, I must go there, I must make it happen.
Yeah.
Every year I never make it happen. It's a little bit like the Edinburgh Festival, really. I always say I'm going to go to it and never actually get round to it.
So it is the destination, isn't it, for anybody who's into tech? And it also, every year, it kind of throws out loads of really sort of weird and wonderful tech stories and new ideas and inventions. And this year hasn't disappointed, has it, on that front?
Definitely hasn't disappointed. And it's very obvious that it's the start of a new decade, because some of the things that are coming out of here are really stuff out of Star Trek and sci-fi. It's very exciting. Well, it is for a geek like me anyway, and there are other people. But anyway, one that in particular, I've actually been looking at some of the highlights because I think that the Telegraph have actually picked out some of the highlights. So I'm going to go with what they've gone with, actually, because they've really chosen out some Bobby Dazzlers, as they say. They've picked out in particular, one is a virtual visor that blocks out the sun. So, you know, when you're driving in a car, you got your visor, and everybody knows that, okay, it's great, maybe just to get a little bit of the sun out of your eyes. But let's be honest, you still have to sort of squint the eyes occasionally, even when the visor is down. Well, not anymore. With virtual visor, what this does is it actually uses facial recognition to determine where one's eyes actually are. And it uses that to cast a shadow over your eyes and block out the sun.
That's a clever idea.
Oh, it is impressive. This is by Bosch, this is.
The other issue with that as well, Phil, is that if you're on a sort of windy road and the sun is coming and going out of your vision, I find that I'm often pulling the blooming thing down and then putting it back up again, then pulling it down again, all within quick
flicking it to the side.
Oh, God, when you've got to pull it off and put it to the side, it's a drag, Phil.
It really is. Well, there you go. I mean, this is the way forward, clearly. The new visor that will stop that and it will use facial recognition. Now, from visors to, well, toilet rolls, really.
Right.
Because the toilet roll company Charmin have unveiled a LuBot, or I think they call it a RollBot, that's the one, where what they do is if you have ever been, how can I be delicate about this? Well, you know what you were saying about your chap on the Virgin trains just now?
Yeah.
Well, if you've ever been caught short, he could have done with one of these RollBots, because what they do is they bring you toilet paper when you get caught short. So this is actually sort of, in essence, exactly what your man on the Virgin train coast was in desperate need of.
We've all been there, right? I think at some point in our lives.
Well, I mean, call me old-fashioned, but I sort of check supplies before hand. But
that's
anyway,
a good idea. I didn't think of that.
I know, but anyway, unfortunately, though, however exciting this new invention by Procter & Gamble actually is, there's not really any plans to release it on the general market, sadly. So you might have to cross your legs a bit longer. But even so, the idea is there, and technically it's a good idea. But yes, I dare say that it might be a case that, unfortunately, you just have to check supplies beforehand.
Okay.
But even so, it's still, in principle, it's a good idea. So that's caused quite a stir over there. And then there was another one that Telegraph have highlighted, and I love this because I'm a dog owner. Do you have pets? You have cats?
I've got a couple of cats. Previously dogs, Actually, over the weekend, I went for a bit of a walk by the canal where I live. My ex-girlfriend and her now husband live quite close by. And
awkward.
Well, it's all right. We're all right. We get on quite well. We bump into each other all the time. We get on really well, actually, to be fair. Maybe it is a little bit awkward sometimes. But the dog that I bought, the dog that I loved and brought up in its early life, was being walked by
dear.
new husband down the canal. I know.
So it's his stepdog.
It's his stepdog, yeah. And I saw my my old dog. That was a bit of an emotional moment. Thank you for letting me share that with you, Phil.
Yeah, no, it's all right. Just call me a therapist. It's all good.
I feel better now.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's always good to talk, I find.
Yeah.
Especially about technology.
Yeah.
Now, this is because the reason why I brought up dogs was that this is called the virtual fence, and what it does is it's GPS-enabled collar that the dog wears, and if you can set your perimeters, so your dog, if it starts to stray over the boundaries, will either receive a little sort of whistling noise that only they can hear that dogs don't really like very much, or this I'm less in favour of because I don't like this very much. It emits a little sort of shock on the collar, as if to say, oi, don't do that. And I know that that's quite a standard practice. I know a lot of people have had that for years, that they've had electric collars, but even so, I don't care very much for it. Anyway, one way or another, this GPS-enabled collar will allow you to set your boundaries and actually stop your dog from straying too far if it does. But best still, of course, because it has GPS, you can track it on your smartphone. So if your dog does go astray, you can see very clearly where it's gone to.
So I was looking at that for our cats because we're about to let them out because they've just recently been spayed and they're going to go out. And we're looking at that for a number of reasons. Number one, to kind of keep an eye on where they are, but also to have a cat flap that is activated by
the collar.
Their collar.
Very good.
Now, in theory, yes, good idea. And I'm not massively concerned by the idea that somebody could rip the collar off and use it to get in, because it's a bit of a... You'd be hard-pressed to know, and I think it's a bit
they'd have to be following your cats for quite a while and know where they live.
Although the address could be on... If we put the address on, or you just put the phone number on, wouldn't you? Anyway, it's a convoluted effort to try and make that happen. What a friend of ours was saying, though, is that they had that, and it didn't work because they got their collar off quite regularly. The cats can just whip the collar off, or they get stuck in a fence or something like that. And it's also quite approximate where they are, right? So it gives you a relatively wide area. It's quite hard to pinpoint exactly to the point where they are, unless you spend thousands and thousands and thousands on these collars. So I get a sense they've got somewhere to go.
Well, yes, they have. I think that in principle, it's a good idea. I dare say that, like all technology, there are flaws to be fixed, but by and large, I think it's great. And actually, I'm all for it. I've long thought that technology like that would actually be quite useful, in all seriousness, for younger people, considering the number of missing people that we see all the time. It's a dreadful shame that actually no one's thought to come up with something like that for humans, frankly.
Yeah.
So we seem to care more about our animals than we do each other.
Always. Have you seen Don't F with Cats?
I can't claim that I have, no.
Brilliant Netflix series. Brilliant. In fact, you as somebody into tech, it's tech relevant as well. Brilliant series where there is a guy who posted a video to the internet of him killing 2 kittens, essentially, right? And so so understandably there was utter outrage, and it's about essentially a Facebook group of sort of vigilante sleuths who track him down and find him, and it escalates and it becomes a huge story, and it's absolutely fascinating the way that they've used the internet to kind of track him. A very interesting modern true crime. Give it a watch and come back and tell me what you think.
Fantastic. I must make a note of that. Right. Okay, well, I tell you what, there are a couple more that I want to just quickly cram in from here, because there are other bits and pieces.
Sorry, I've been wittering on.
No, not at all. This is your show. Pretend it's your show. Make it happen. This is the wearable camera that boosts hearing aids. Now, you may have picked up on over the time that we have spent talking technology together that I do like technology that actually assists people, because then gadgets are all well and good, but if it's actually technology that can improve someone's life, I think it's amazing. Well, this is a wearable camera that actually works in sync with hearing aids to lip read what someone is saying and actually ultimately improve the hearing. It's by an Israeli tech company called Orcam. And what they do is you wear, let's say, on a pocket or something like that, on the front of your jacket or whatever you're wearing, the camera that actually sort of can detect where, again, through kind of facial recognition, where the lips are, watches what someone is saying to you, and subsequently feeds back to the hearing aids so that ultimately you can hear really clearly. Because to anyone who wears hearing aids will be able to tell you that they're not always that great, because they're quite omnidirectional. They pick up on a lot of different sounds and noises, so you have to hone in. That's why you always see, when you're going to shops and things like that, that we have the T induction system. So in other words, if you flick hearing aid to the T position, it focuses
Yeah.
what's being said to you.
Okay.
And that's why it makes it much easier to hear. This actually, as it were, is a portable T system where it will, as it were, make sure it picks up on the noises that you want to hear
Very
from having a
interesting.
conversation with
Wow,
someone.
okay, that's very
I
clever.
love the thought of that.
Yeah.
And then the other one that I thought had to be mentioned without doubt. I mean, I know we work in radio, but this one, control the TV with the mind. I don't need to say any more than that. That's
Right.
exactly what it does.
Bring it on.
So there we
I
are.
think you do actually have to say a bit more than that. How does that work?
How does it work? It's a very good question. Ultimately, what it is a headband that uses electrodes that reads the brain. So when you're sitting there, and I mean, this is just when you thought the remote control was the height of laziness, this
Yeah.
has gone one step further.
Yeah.
And if you're sitting there and you can't be bothered to find your remote control wherever you've put it, even if it is just sitting next to you, you can sit there and ultimately think what channel you want to switch to, or
Right.
if you want the volume up or the volume down, and ultimately it changes.
Okay, flaw with that, right? And I'm sure they've worked this one out. But often, when you're told not to think about something, what do? You think about it. So if I'm watching a television and I'm thinking, I wonder what's on Channel 3, that doesn't necessarily mean I want to turn to Channel 3. It just means that Channel 3 has crossed my mind, and the TV will then presumably change to Channel 3. Or if I'm thinking about the volume or something like that, then it changes. It's just hard to control that, isn't it? Actually, controlling your mind is a very, very difficult thing to do.
Well, I was just thinking how many unfortunate husbands there would be sitting there watching TV, trying to picture a particular individual. Maybe they're watching on television in a certain position. The next thing you know is it flicks to the channels in the 900 ranges. But even so, it would, I suppose, at least ensue some sort of discipline. So there is something.
For sure. Hey, Phil, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank
Likewise.
you very much. Never a chore.
Never a chore.
Next week?
Well, why not, indeed, shall we?
Let's do it, absolutely. Phil Dave, the Chic Geek, with us on Talk Radio this morning. We're going to hear from Dawn Neeson before 5. Her take on some of the big stories kicking about this morning. Next on Talk Radio. Hang on.
On DAB, digital